Hi, Sara, and welcome to the Digging Trail podcast.
Hello, Scott.
So, Lisbon, another place, one of my favorites. I tell this on every podcast, but
Great to know.
But Lisbon really is. So happy to do this in person. We're talking in this special series. We're talking with airline leaders, digital e-commerce leaders. And before we start, I always prepare for the podcast, checking LinkedIn bios. One thing that was really interesting about your journey is that you started your professional career many years ago as a marketing intern at TAP.
Yes.
And then several years later, you're back in the industry. What took you so long to get back to this beautiful industry?
Well, first of all, thank you and welcome to Lisbon. It's always a pleasure to have people from around the world joining us, and mainly for those that work in TAP. And our mantra is really embrace the world. So we embrace everyone that embraces the world with us and visits us. So thank you for that. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. So yes, it was by chance.
The first time or the second time?
Both. I didn't plan. So, yes, I finished college, the university. I graduated in communication sciences, marketing, public relations, and management. And my first internship was at TAP. It was proposed by the university. So it was really by chance. And I worked in the marketing department, or my intern was in the marketing department back in 1998. During the famous Expo 98 that took place in Lisbon and really brought or took to the world Portugal as an amazing place to visit, to live, and to really dream. I think that it's an amazing country to dream about a better world and a better life. And I think that we have that possibility here. And then, well, life happened. I had experience in several different industries, but I did start working in digital back in 2001. Back then, we didn't even call it digital. It was web marketing, but it was already e-commerce. And I had the pleasure and the honor of starting working in e-commerce back then. So I feel that I have quite a journey in this professional area. I do not consider myself an expert because I really believe that we're always learning. We might have some skills, yes, hopefully, some knowledge. But mainly in this area, everything happens so fast and changes so rapidly. What was back then, the internet, the digital world, was so different from what it is now in, well, technology-wise, consumer trends or consumer habits-wise. Even the journeys that we had back then for the users were different. We keep on learning, and if we don't adapt as fast as the ecosystem changes, we will never become good at what we do. And yes, then in 2022, the challenge came again from TAP. I never thought about coming back, but it was with a great pleasure that I embraced this challenge, not only because it's an industry that I never worked before. Well, besides that intern, but it's not a professional experience in the real sense, the deep sense of that. Prepares you for the rest of your career, but it's just a starting point. But as I was saying, I didn't embrace the challenge with passion and really a lot of commitment, not only because it's an amazing industry, but also because it's TAP, obviously.
The brand.
And the brand, what it means for Portugal and for a Portuguese person like me that really enjoys seeing our colors and our culture traveling around the world. But it was also a big challenge because after COVID, this industry suffered so much as others. But we were with our planes on the ground, and it was massive. It was a massive disruption during those years. So recovering from that, the fact that we were, again, a public company under a restructuring plan, and we were mandated to transform the airline and make it financially sustainable and successful again, that's the challenge.
We'll get back to the challenge shortly. But in your role, maybe just quickly about that, you manage the digital and e-commerce department.
Yes.
How does it fit in a bigger ecosystem of, let's say, TAP?
Well, it's a key strategic pillar, not only being digitally transformed and a modern airline, but it fits pretty well in the sense that digital is not new in TAP. Just as an example, our tapairportugal.com is becoming 30 years old in 2026. So we have our institutional website since then, which says something.
Yeah.
It means something. And e-commerce has also over 24 years old. We were pioneers back then. We were one of the first airlines to have not only a booking engine, but a booking engine selling ancillaries, for example, and having a solution for users or for passengers to manage their booking. So it's more than strategic. It's already part of what we do, of who we are, and definitely is one of our main channels to be close to our customers and really make the difference in transforming their journey in something pleasant, seamless. But the transformation in a legacy airline, I think it's already a cliche. The majority of the legacy airlines do have significant transformation to do in the back-end systems, even in the business models. The modern retailing, which is curious that we call it modern, when in other industries, retailing is there for 20 years. But in the aviation industry, is not exactly like that. So we still need a lot. We still have a lot to do. With the other departments, it's completely normal to deal with the different channels, with the offline and the online channels, even though there are silos, of course, but because we work in different areas and with different teams. The fact is that internally, it's completely natural and a given that if there's a discussion that touches commercial or even customer, from a digital customer experience perspective, if there's a discussion about new markets, new routes, people do collaborate with digital, do count on our opinion and on our expertise, on our insights. The fact that we take our decisions based on data means a lot, and means a lot to the rest of the company too, because we aggregate a lot of insights that are facts, are there. Data is there to prove it. And those facts, that data really supports a lot of the company's decisions, and do accelerate many of our conversations, because we know what is happening. We know the expectation. We know what are the friction points. We know the trends. We can really see the world, or almost understand better the world, at least from a travel expectations point of view, from the office, from the spot where we seated. So it's interesting.
If I go back to the challenge, and you talked about the long history of e-commerce, the first websites, ancillaries at TAP. But then you also told me one thing when we talked as a brief for this chat. You told me that you typically join digital teams when it's complex and when it's hard. This is something that I really put at the back of my mind. So what was the complex and hard part when you joined? Because you also talked about the transformation. If we maybe can talk a little bit about that transformation when you started, and what was the journey since?
So as I said, we were not only coming out of the pandemic with everything that meant for an airline and even for the world, but there were also a lot of changes within the company. So the transformation meant we really needed to accelerate on one hand. We needed to review, not necessarily to change the processes, but we needed to review the processes. We needed to tackle many of our technical challenges.
Okay.
We wanted to be much more customer centered than we were, and it's something common within this industry. Before the pandemic, it was not that much about the customer as it is now. And at least from where I stand, from my point of view, the industry was not that centered in the customer. The transformation was also about the cultural change. And I usually say that the digital transformation starts with people. You can change the back end, the systems, the front ends, the technology supporting you, the software, whatever. If you do not change the mindset and the culture of the people behind that, it will never work. It will never really be transformed. And that's what really takes longer. So we have been having that transformation from a technical standpoint and processes. Even the way that we were approaching our digital marketing or even our go-to-marketing strategy is a little bit different from what was before. But that cultural change is what we struggle the most. And it's not because people don't want to. It's not because people don't understand that. It's because it's people. And it's hard to change the habits and the way that we see our work, the fact that we have been doing things like that for many, many time. We see the change happening, but it's not changing as fast as we need, and it doesn't change as fast as technology changes.
Okay.
Another aspect is, or another transformation that affects all the departments and not only digital and e-commerce, obviously, is the brand. The brand reputation, our positioning. We did change the brand positioning back in 2024. We took longer than we wanted. Obviously, that was a project led by the marketing and branding department, but it was something that touched us all in the sense that we need to reflect that positioning. And the positioning is TAP brings Portugality, if we want to say it in English, to the world, and we embrace the world. We do bring people together across the globe with a different way of receiving them online, of receiving them on board, of taking care of them when needed, of when we're managing the disruption.
Is there maybe an example, let's say, of how you can embed that brand message that you so beautifully explained into, let's say, a digital experience?
An example, the copy, the content in the industry, not only in this one. I worked in pharma, for example, for 11 years, and we had the same challenge, how to translate into the jargon, the language that the industry uses, and that, by the way, is regulated. How do we translate that in something that people understand? And in aviation, it's the same. We have a lot of jargon. And
revenue management.
And not only that, even the way that we address the baggage topic, or we call ancillaries to ancillaries, but what does that
Restrictions,
really
ancillaries.
mean? And what is exactly a disruption? And that was a challenge not only for us in digital, but for the company. We really went through that. We even created, exactly because of that, not only we now have a chief customer officer with areas dedicated to the customer, not only to the customer experience, but to think as a customer within the company and bringing that way of being and thinking to all the areas. That difference in the way that we address the topics and we explain things had to have a reflect on the digital content. It's a work in progress. We know, we don't feel, because in digital, it's not a matter of feeling, even if I trust my gut feeling, but it's not a feeling, it's a fact that customers still need more, they need us to be even more, not transparent, because we are transparent, we put everything there, all the rules, but then how easy is it for a customer to really understand all those rules and the terms that we need to use? That's one of the things that really translates a different mindset towards the customer, is the way that we have our content written on the website. And again, it's a work in progress. So if you tackle anything that you say, this doesn't explain exactly what a customer would understand, please just let us know. We appreciate.
I booked my flight with your TAP app and flew TAP here, so but I think the experience was
it would be too easy for me to now ask, how was the experience? You would probably say,
No, I think the experience was good. I think, like I said, I think it was quite easy to do, but let's say I'm not the typical user. So
yes, we have a lot of work to do still.
If I go back to something that we also, I think, that touched before offline, when you joined, you said that typically you tackle such challenges of transformation with the same approach. You mentioned your past experience in pharma, and you told me a little bit about it was like a 3-year approach, something like that. Maybe if you can explain a little bit what are the key milestones there, or what are the key things, and also because you also talked about the people, because I think a lot of the milestones are typically in our industry are tech related, tech challenge related, and we put, okay, we will need to change this and this front end, back end, I don't know, app, but then underlying people transformation is there. So maybe if you can just talk a little bit about that approach and maybe the journey that you have.
Yeah, usually, well, at least from my experience, and I was very, very lucky during my career. I had amazing managers and colleagues and peers and everyone around. I also experienced amazing industries or areas, and that makes a difference. But every time I had this sort of challenge of really coming in when something needed to be transformed. And I'm not saying that everything was bad. No, not at all.
Complex.
It was probably more complex and still is, but it was more. And we cannot forget that in that period. So I joined TAP in 2022 and everything was, storming, everything. So it's not about what was done before. It was really about that moment, the context of that moment that made the company think and plan for a transformation. And the transformation, we usually plan it in 3 years. Do the plan change throughout the 3 years? Yes, it does. And we must have that flexibility and agility to change. But it's very, very important to really deliver a transformation and mainly to accelerate that transformation, to have that underlying plan, that vision that cannot be only something that you write on a beautiful slide deck. It really needs to make sense for the people, makes sense obviously for the market, for the customers, but we need to have that plan, and then we adjust as we go. So that 3 year really, well, I can resume it in what was the key strategic imperative of those years. So the first year was about assessment of what we had, what was the situation, what were the processes, who were the teams working with us, what was the skill set, what was the technology, and also what were not only the commercial challenges, but the customer journey challenges, of course. Then the second year was about fixing the basics. And fixing the basics, if you ask me, oh, did you fix all the basics? Oh, no. I wish. I wish we did fix the basics in 1 year only, but we didn't. But we had to prioritize. And that year was really about the priorities for those basics that had to be fixed. The critical technical errors behind not only impacting the customer, but impacting the workload internally, adjusting a few processes, reviewing the performance marketing strategy, for example, because we have to balance between investments and revenue, of course. And that was the year of fixing the basics. Then the third year was acceleration.
Okay.
And you can tell me, oh my God, but you go from assess, then fix, and then suddenly you just accelerate. That was the plan. But as I said, we have to adjust. The third year, and this third year was 2024, we really did accelerate. We didn't start the acceleration in January 2024. That really started before. And that's a second thing that, at least from my experience, I don't advise anyone, because if advices were good, I would sell it and not give it. But from my experience, even if you have that plan and that vision, and you can manage to deliver on that plan or according to that plan, if you do not anticipate, you will fail. So people that work with me or know me, even in my personal life, they know that I always say this. I stick with my plan A as far as I can, but I always have a plan B. I don't want to personalize this too much and say it's about me. So the team, we always want to have a plan B. And that plan B gives you this possibility of adjusting when something really changes, but you still know that is the way that you need, that you want to go. So we started in advance, planning not only the fix the basics year, but also the acceleration year. But we did deliver. So we did, from a technological standpoint, we did quite a few changes, mid to front end. We work obviously very, very closely with digital and technology services. So our IT department, we work very closely with revenue management, with marketing, with customer. And we all had to accelerate in order to deliver this vision. We now have, at least, we don't have everything yet, but we did accelerate the transformation of the front-end experience, if you want to put it like this. So we now have a new website, a new flightsapp.com that went live in December 2024. We have a new mobile app, and we are more and more deploying not only new features, so evolving these products, but also transforming the other customer-facing websites that TAP owns. Because one of the things that it's absolutely critical when you want to be customer-centered and bring more revenue and be more cost-efficient is consistency. If you are not consistent in the experience that you provide to your customers throughout their journey, but also on the digital channels, you can change everything. You can change the colors, the technology, but they will not trust that experience.
How does consistency, which I think is very important, goes in hand, or how let's say, how challenging it is to have it with the accelerate pad. Because, as I say, I've been in past in your shoes, and I know how the pressure, you need to roll out this campaign, new market, new route, new product, and you want to have this accelerate mindset. But then does it sometimes overlap, or is it challenging to keep then the consistency, because you're easy to do something too quickly that it's not maybe fitting the whole consistent picture?
Well, I could easily say, oh no, it went very peacefully, but no. But no. It was challenging. Again, obviously, without having years of experience in this industry, so as I said, I joined in 2022, I had first and foremost to apply my technical knowledge and the experience that I bring from other similar transformational projects. So another key thing to do is, besides thinking that before you change the technology, you need to change the people and the process, is building the acceleration program in a way that it doesn't disrupt the business as usual, but at the same time, you need to bring everyone on board and have the ability to build an informal leadership. This means that we have an amazing, quite big project team, almost fully dedicated to this acceleration program. And at the same time, we tried to have the rest of the teams, a little bit protected from what we were doing on the side. How does this translate? We didn't involve many of the people that had to keep on going, delivering the revenue and doing the business as usual, or the daily work and the daily fixes and all. In parallel, we had this project team dedicated. We had a clear roadmap. We had clear stream leads, because the project involved 8 different areas. And we had to deliver. We wanted to deliver on time and on budget, but we knew that everything could go wrong. Like everything. The transformation in itself is much more condemned to unsuccess than to success. And you need to keep the motivation focused on the vision and on knowing, I have a roadmap, we have the people dedicated, the experience, the expertise, the partners, everything. We can make this, but at the same time be very realistic in saying, mainly to the top management, that, hey,
but I think
there's a huge risk involved here. So everything else, you need to make sure that those teams keep also focused on what is the business as usual.
I think this point that you made, that have a dedicated team, like a SWAT team.
Yeah.
My background, IT, before marketing, and I remember we worked like on a similar project, changing the whole flight ops systems for an airline. And one of the main learnings from this project is take away people from their dedicated jobs and dedicate them to that team. Just work on a project first focus, and that was, I think it's personally also from my experience, the best way to really prioritize and like you said, move fast, accelerate.
It was more about prioritizing, because for us, we don't have, as no one, we don't have endless resources, and the expertise that we have is needed all the time, everywhere. But at least part of the project team, the core of the project team, was splitting their time like 80-20, 80% of the time to the project and 20% to the rest. But again, in a very, at least passionate way, assuming not only the risk, but mainly assuming with all the transparency that we could, that everything could go wrong. And at the same time, building internally the trust that we would make everything on our hand to deliver. And we did. Me personally, I can only thank and appreciate and congratulate the team, using this opportunity to do it more publicly, because everyone was truly amazing, and the project keeps on going. So the acceleration didn't end, didn't stop. The biggest milestone was in fact this change that is seen from the outside, reflected on the website and the app.
New front end, new app.
Yeah, and now a lot of things keep happening, because, as I said, we are humble enough to unfortunately know that we still have a lot to improve from an experience point of view. And that will definitely support and build more trust and more loyalty within our customers.
Okay, you talked about changing the people, changing the tech. If you think back, it was one decision, one initiative, one thing. What do you think would be one thing that maybe shifted the way TAP or digital team operates online digitally now?
Collaboration.
Okay. That's a good word.
Yes, I have a few words that are always on the back of my mind. The first one is passion.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is focus. Third one is resilience, and the last one is collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, do we still have work to do also in that area? Yes, of course. There's always room for improvement, and because the company is still and will continue to be transformed internally and to the outside. There are processes that keep on changing, people moving from one area to another, areas being created, restructured, reorganized. So you keep on fine-tuning the way that you collaborate with everyone around you. But yeah, that was a change. If I had to select one, would be that. We are perceived as an area that collaborates more or better, I don't know, than before. And before is not necessarily before COVID or before yesterday. That's why it's an evolution, and it makes a huge difference. I'm a fan of 2 emails. The third email becomes a phone call or just a coffee with that person.
Or the famous line, this meeting should be an email.
Also, but I think that even if I'm completely into digital, and I don't know, I don't even recall the last time I printed something, but I'm much more on the human touch when it comes to my personal and professional life, to be in contact with people than to be digitally connected with that person. And collaboration comes a lot from knowing the person that you need to work with, to understand the expression, the face expression, the nonverbals,
empathy,
and create an empathy. And everything becomes so much easier when you collaborate in a way that you humanize the work that you have to do. And that sometimes it's really, we don't want to do it. We just want to avoid this problem. We don't want to have another meeting on this topic. And sometimes everything really gets solved in a couple of minutes just based on a conversation.
You mentioned that your department, if I remembered correctly, is the one that they love you or love you, respect you.
Oh my God!
I use the not the right word, but they like interacting with your department because they know you use data, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, and I also saw, I think, I don't know, probably it was one LinkedIn post for a job. I think you posted about, because our whole spiel in DigiTrail was with the conversion optimization, testing, UX optimization, and you were posting about experimentation, loving to fail. So that was what got my mind going, because typically I saw it from people, digital optimization people, but not from the leaders. So that was, to me, was interesting. How you, let's say, promote that mindset as a leader to your, let's say, to your team, that it's not wrong to fail. It's sometimes even good because you learn if you do it the right way, if you learn something, if you use data. Maybe if you can tell me a little bit more.
Yes, I can. So first, I cannot say, and probably my team will not say, that they feel very comfortable in failing. Even because I don't like to say that I'm a perfectionist. That's not the point. The point is, fortunately or unfortunately, I tend to be, in many aspects, I try to be far away during a certain period of time, far away from a specific subject.
Operational.
Or even I don't go to the website, to our own website, every single day. And I do it on purpose. Why? Because like that, I'm not as biased as I am if I see that every single day, or if I discuss the same topic deeply and consistently. If I don't see, and if I don't talk, if I don't listen about the same things over and over again, I tend to have an open-minded during a longer period of time, and I tend to have an eye that sees what the others are not seeing anymore because they see it every day, so they don't notice. And this brings something that obviously no one likes, which is sometimes I see something that already went through 20 different pairs of eyes, and I spot something. An error, a fail, or I click a link and it doesn't work. And I say, obviously, hey, this is wrong. We need to correct, to fix, blah, 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 blah. And that is many times perceived, or can be many times perceived, as perfectionism, one, criticism, two, and even, oh, but she only and always points what is wrong. The balance is needed. Obviously, I cannot only point out what needs to be fixed. I try to always recognize the work that is correctly done. But I truly believe that it's better, even if we point out, if we identify the problems, it's better if we just test, fail fast, learn, and move on, than not doing it because we were afraid of failing, or even just pretending that it's perfect and that there's nothing there to be corrected or fixed. So for my team, I think, or as a leader, this is the spirit I try to not only live, but walk the talk, you know. I assume my own mistakes. I assume that this is not yet perfect, and will never be perfect. I assume that will never be perfect, hey? But at the same time, I say, hey, but I'm committed. We're committed in Excel, in doing it better, in improving it, in fixing, even if it's incrementally and it's not perfect from one day to another. At least I want to believe, and the feedback that I have, they do tell me, hey, you do criticize. Yes, I do. Because if we don't assume, if we don't spot one, if we do not identify what still needs to be better, to be improved, and if we don't point it out in a way that it will be fixed, how do we evolve? We don't.
The data part here, because mistakes are one thing. Yeah? When you find something, okay, try to book, doesn't work, there is not much debate. It should be fixed.
Yes.
But sometimes, a lot of time in UX, it's about opinions, you know? I think this should work better than if it should be, I don't know, other way around. Maybe we should have this workflow or the other way, or this selection or this design. How do you embed, or how do you avoid as a leader? Because I think it's a lot of time difficult, because you are often expected to make decisions to show guidance, but to also say, okay, maybe my opinion is not the best, maybe we should use the data, maybe we should test it. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know. Well, it's common, and it's common in in all the professional areas, marketeers, and I'm also a marketeer in my heart, but in IT or in marketing or in revenue or wherever. Those professionals, what they say is that, oh, everyone is a revenue manager. Everyone has a revenue manager inside them, right? And in digital, because it's so exposed, it's visible to everyone, and it's really open to everyone's opinion, that becomes even more clear. I'm sure that within my team, there's no doubt about data is what really can support an opinion. We are obviously entitled to have opinions. We do listen to other people's opinions. We consider those opinions in many occasions, because sometimes you don't have data to support. You don't have data to prove that that opinion is right or wrong. So, and in those cases, you rather go after that data and collect it and analyze it and get your own conclusions, or you just assume, okay, let's test. As I said, test, fail fast, learn, and move on. And that's the spirit of CRO, for example. You do have the data. And that it's based on that you optimize for conversion. And the conversion can be a registration, a login, a download of a study, a form, and hopefully a purchase. But in many times, you don't have data. Okay, let's do an A/B test. Cool. And what if the A/B test is not conclusive? A huge risk for any transformation, but obviously also for a digital transformation, is not being able, the company or a leader or the teams, not being able to take decisions, to risk. And when we do not have, even when we have data, we're assuming the risk in changing something, right? Because it can go wrong. Yeah. When you don't have the data, but you know that something is not okay, at least you need to be able to assess if it's manageable, if the risk of changing is manageable or not, and just do it. Or don't do it and assume that you will not do it until you have the data. Within my team, there's no doubt about this balance between really taking data-based decisions and having the ability of assuming the risk of doing it without data.
The point that you made is very good, because this is what I often talked about when we are talking about this more scientific data-driven approach to decision-making, because you're de-risking your decisions, basically. Because otherwise, if you don't measure, if you don't do before, if you don't test, if you don't measure, you don't know basically what risk are you taking. And I think this process, the ones that you explained, is basically putting or de-risking the whole decision-making process, which makes, in best case scenario, then future decisions faster and more confident.
Yes.
Maybe.
And acceleration comes with a huge risk.
Yeah.
You don't go through a transformational process accelerated without a lot of risk.
Yeah.
For me, it's always about having informed decisions, obviously, pointing out and being very transparent within the company in saying, hey, these are the opportunities, but these are the risks. And if one of these, of all of these, if they happen, what we need is to have a plan B. What is the workaround? How will we manage? How do we mitigate these risks? That's absolutely critical. Transparency and being able to assume the risk. No, I know these are the risks. I have a mitigation plan. We even have a plan B if something goes wrong. But my recommendation is to assume these risks and move forward, because otherwise, transformation will be just another jargon, another beautiful world on someone else's slide deck, and they will not be in our delivery.
Maybe at the end, because you said, and I agree, transformation or the project doesn't end with a new website, with a new app.
No.
If you look in the future, if I would ask you in 2 years, what would you like to see on your digital touch points that would make you really happy, that is not now there?
Well, first of all, I would like to see in TAP Air Portugal's digital channels and not mine.
I mean,
yeah, I understood, but it's important. It's about TAP.
Yeah,
it is, because our customers, they do deserve. Every customer deserves, but our customers really, really deserve to have the best experience ever while they're traveling with us. And the digital journey is one of the first steps that they in which they embark on this experience with TAP. So in 2 years, I would like to see resilience, stability, and a seamless experience in which they really feel embraced and able to embrace the world with us. I wouldn't like to go with the cliche. We need to have the servicing, where we are on our journey to offer an order management, and that will change the retailing. No, it's really about being on a digital experience that works and in which you trust. Because resilience and stability are critical to build what I already mentioned. Yes, trust. You cannot think that you will have customers trusting TAP if they don't know if today the website will work for them, and they don't know if tomorrow will be the same. It has to be resilient and stable.
And I think resiliency and stability is becoming even more important now than ever with all these events that are going on, cybersecurity, and the scale at which you operate. I think we sometimes forget how huge these digital operations are in terms of, I don't know, thousands of bookings happening every day. So we sometimes take it for granted. So I think it's a very good point.
And it's more than about trust. So obviously, this ambition or this desire of seeing this in 2 years, we want it because we want our customers to be happy, obviously, and for that happiness to be there. As I said, they need to trust us first and foremost. But from a business standpoint, I pinpoint one of the biggest risks that the industry has right now from a commercial standpoint, as I was saying, the fact that super apps, the travel and hospitality super apps are there to stay. They evolve in a way that a legacy airline, I don't know if we will ever be able to do the same, to have the same speed. The fact that they are already using AI for many more years than we do, they do retail properly, they are gathering the data from our customers and servicing them in a 360 perspective that, one, airlines will not do, two, we risk to lose this fundamental relation with our customers, because they have that stability, resilience, innovation, ability to know them, to personalize their experience and give them a 360 offer from those super apps, which are not from airlines. Well, maybe one in China. But and from a business point of view, we cannot forget that this transfer or that acceleration in digital around us is so much faster than ours. We need to cope up with that and at least give them stability, resilience, and build that trust.
Yeah, no, trust. And like you said, resilience, stability, very important. Last thing that I ask all of your colleagues at the end of these interviews, and you talked about the challenges of super apps, of changing environment, and things like that. How do you, as a leader, prepare, learn to stay on top of your game?
That's a great question. In fact, that's something that I often say to the team and mainly to my managers and to the managers of the team. Take time to study, to read, or to listen to a podcast, to go through, to experiment not only other experiences or other digital journeys with airlines, but leave the industry, test other things. We're all consumers. We're all travelers. Well, many of us, we're travelers and we're consumers, and we have opinion about that. So bring those insights to your daily work. Take time not only to study or to read and to learn. I don't want to say study. Sometimes it is study, to learn, but then take the time to discuss those ideas with your teams. Take time to put on the paper or to write down those ideas and think, what can I do with these to evolve, to excel, to innovate? That's so, so, so important. We are absolutely, how do you say, when something...
Busy,
No,
occupied.
and it's more than busy. We are, when...
occupied and bombarded with
Yes,
things.
with the daily work, with everything, with the meetings and the emails and the PowerPoints and this and that, that if we don't really stop and save some time during our working hours to do something different and think beyond the daily work and the yearly plan, innovation and adaptation and change doesn't happen. And then comes lack of motivation. You often lose, or you can often lose, the sense of purpose with what you do. Your teams tend to see you more, instead of a leader, they see you more as, okay, he operates like we
manager,
do. Yeah. And really don't recognize in you something, a person that does something different. Different in the sense that different from the daily job. You need to add that value. So that's the first advice. The second one is, it's hard, but try to think without the box. Not outside the box. It's really without the box. How would I like to have an experience if I'm traveling to Panama? How do I envision not only traveling there, but the whole journey? And then think, okay, if the passenger is choosing TAP, not to go to Panama, to go to, Rio de Janeiro, how can I translate my own desires together with the insights that I'm getting from my learning hours and make something different for TAP, and really make something different with my team and
Collaboration.
Yeah.
You said a very important word. Take time to learn. Take time to think, not outside, but without the box. So first of all, I would like to thank you for taking the time. And I also hope people will take time to listen. I think, like I said, oftentimes I say in this podcast is we can talk casually like we do now for an hour about different things. And if you take time, if you waste 1 hour to get one idea, it's always worth it. So I think this will be worth it. I think there's more than one idea hidden in what you said. So really appreciate your time, Sara.
Thank you.
And I think we'll see each other in this beautiful place soon.
Yes, hopefully I will see you soon. Thank you again. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really hope that I also could, contribute somehow to other people to change something tomorrow after after listening to this podcast, not only this podcast, but also other of your podcasts, because I've listened to a few of them, and I did find interesting insights. So I don't know. Hopefully, I could say at least one thing that will not help but contribute to someone.
I'm more than confident, and thanks again.
Thank you.